Growing a business is kind of tricky right now. Supply chains are squeezed, tariffs and trade policies are dynamic, and cash flow, it's tighter than ever. You need clarity to come out on top. Without it, you risk falling behind. If only you could hop in the DeLorean and see the future, right? Thankfully, there's NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite has real-time forecasting to help you move ahead with confidence. This is your AI-powered business management suite and the #1 cloud ERP. Trusted by over 42,000 businesses, NetSuite brings accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR all under one roof. It's your single source of truth, giving you the data and control you need to move quickly. And with AI built in, you can automate the busy work and focus on strategy. NetSuite helps you see what's stuck, what it's costing you, and how to pivot fast. If I were running a business with a lot of moving parts, I'd use NetSuite for full control over everything. Tame the chaos with NetSuite. If your revenues are at least in 7 figures, download the free ebook, Navigating Global Trade, 3 Insights for Leaders at netsuite.com/SPI. That's netsuite.com/SPI. You spent months building towards launch day, but when the clock hits 0, your site crashes. Bots swarm, and loyal fans rage on Reddit. That's not good. Fanfare was built to stop that. Fanfare is the drop platform made for high-pressure moments, stampede-proof infrastructure, verified waitlists, and bot filters that actually work. Instead of refunds and rage, you get retention and revenue. And that sounds great to me. Your next launch shouldn't be a gamble. Get Fanfare's 5-step hype drop playbook and learn how to bulletproof your drop at fanfare.io/playbook. Again, that's fanfare.io/playbook.
We need something else in the communication between the scientists and the benefactor of the science. And podcasts appear to be a brilliant route to find them. So I didn't care how many people will listen, because I knew that whoever listens, I can really make a big change for the everyday work of that single person. But seeing, 50 people download it, 100, 200, wow, 300 fire safety engineers listening. I didn't have any other way to reach 300 people with an hour-long message.
I'm so excited about this podcast episode because you're about to listen to somebody who has recently started their brand, who has a very small following. They're in a very tiny niche. I mean, the overall population of how many people are even in this industry is just thousands. Yet his podcast has been able to generate enough revenue to surpass his day job. And we're going to talk about exactly what these numbers are, exactly how he got started, how he's doing this. I want to introduce you to Wojciech over in Poland, who has a fire science podcast, firescienceshow.com. And it's an incredible story, in fact. You can check out his podcast if you'd like, but listen in and stick around to the end because he actually came back to me after this interview was done. We had a really good time, and he said, Pat, I wanted to offer more. I want to show you and give you the exact framework of how I pitched my podcast to a sponsor. And even though I had a tiny number of downloads, I mean, we do talk about that, but he goes into more in depth, which I'll literally read for you word for word at the end because it is that valuable, and it's going to break your mind in such an amazing way because I think a lot of us feel like we need millions of downloads, but you don't. In your niche that you're in, you can be a superstar and you can help out and you can provide value, and Wojciech did exactly that. Fire Science Show is where you can check them out. Anyway, let's get right into it. This is session 735 of the Smart Passive Income Podcast, and here he is.
You're listening to the Smart Passive Income Podcast, a proud member of the Entrepreneur Podcast Network, a show that's all about working hard now so you can sit back and reap the benefits later. And now your host. He wishes he lived right next to water so he can go fishing during breakfast every day. Pat Flynn.
Running a business means legal questions are inevitable. Is this contract or agreement solid? What can I do if a client won't pay me? Am I set up properly for taxes? Well, rather than trying to navigate all of this on your own or searching endlessly online, imagine having a law firm on your side without the high hourly rates. That's exactly what Legal Shield's small business plans offer. With Legal Shield, entrepreneurs get access to real legal support, contract reviews, collection letters, guidance on business formation, and even help handling IRS audits. Members can book consultations, upload documents through the app, and work with a provider law firm that understands small business laws in your state. You also get proactive help on tax and trademark questions so you can stay ahead of legal risks. And if a client delays payment, Legal Shield can send professional collection letters to help you recover what you're owed. all for a fraction of what traditional attorneys charge. Go to LegalShield.com/SPI or call 833-570-9980 to learn more and get big business legal support without a big business budget. That's LegalShield.com/SPI. Still using a copy-paste website? Break the template trap with Framer. Whether you're overwhelmed by traditional site builders or frustrated with cookie-cutter designs, Framer gives you the freedom to create a site that's professional, polished, and uniquely yours. Framer is the design-first, no-code website builder that lets anyone ship a production-ready site in minutes. It's free to start, allowing you to browse hundreds of pixel-perfect templates or even design something on your own on a totally blank canvas. Add bold animations like appear effects, text effects, parallax scrolling, scroll animations, looping animations, and much more in seconds. The built-in AI handles the heavy lifting, generating starter layouts, and can even translate your entire site to any language. Ready to build a site that looks hand-coded without hiring a developer? Launch your site for free at framer.com and use code SPI to get your first month of pro on the house. That's framer.com, promo code SPI. Framer.com, promo code SPI. Rules and restrictions may apply. Wojciech, welcome to the SPI podcast. It's an honor to have you on the show. Thank you.
Well, Pat, thank you so much. A dream come true. And you've been helping me so much over the years. It's my turn to help others.
I appreciate you for that. I wanted to get your story and get you on here because you are a fairly new podcaster and you sent a message in our community about how successful the podcast has been for you. We'll get back into the sort of how this all began, but like, where are you at now with your show? What has happened as a result of starting your show?
Oh man, that has been an amazing journey. So first of all, I'm a fire safety engineer, fire protection engineer. So I deal with how to make buildings safe in case of fires. And there's actually a whole profession around that. It's not a huge profession. It's kind of a secret organization, and there's not that many people working in this organization. But the ones who do are very passionate, and it's really, we're having a great blast doing what we're doing. And podcasting was like, I enjoy podcasts, and I understand what it means to build connections through podcasts, in a way how I'm connected to you, for example, by listening to hundreds of your episodes. So I understood there is some magic in that, and I perhaps would love to have some of this magic in my world. But I struggled, it's a tiny niche. It kind of didn't make sense to start a podcast for just perhaps a few hundred people, I've battled for that for years before I thought, yeah, let's take a jump and let's see where this gets me. And now, 2 years into the podcast, 120 episodes later, the best decision ever, really.
Why was it the best decision ever?
The way how you can connect with people is truly something out of this world. The way how you affect others in your profession. So fire safety engineering is a very difficult discipline. It's a mix of thermodynamics, civil engineering, human behavior, computer sciences, fluid mechanics, like a lot of different sciences that go into it. And the person who's delivering the fire safety strategy should kind of comprehend most of that in some way in order to really deliver a good product in the end, a safe building in the end. And it's very difficult to keep up with all the stuff that's happening in all of these disciplines around. So many of fire safety engineers struggle with that because they are, close in their own silo. They would be designing the stuff that they're always designing, doing the stuff they're always been doing. And they have very little exposure to what's happening around them, what's the progress in other remote ends in fire safety engineering. And that's what I try to bring them with the Fire Science Show, my podcast. I try to give them, the easiest way to keep up with what's happening in an industry. And it's kind of magic because I've also learned there is no irrelevant topics in the show. And this allows people to really grow as professionals in a very serious engineering discipline on which human lives kind of depend.
That's amazing. So the human-to-human connection, different people in the industry now coming together. I mean, who have you connected with now that maybe is surprising to you since starting your show?
There are these, famous names in the discipline, professors who have built the whole discipline in the 70s, 80s. I'm a guy from Poland. I don't have connections, anywhere, or I did not have connections anywhere. It was kind of surreal for me to be able to reach them, have them respond to me, have them talk with me for hours, enjoy it.
That's so cool.
Make friends with them, It's like being a part of the history of discipline and kind of preserving that for future generations, because we also know the podcast can live for a long time. And what's more important? When these people were building this discipline up, they wrote papers, they wrote books. So the knowledge is there, but you very rarely know the context, I can ask them, why did you write this book? Why did you run this experiment?
Fascinating.
Like, how did the space look back then that made you pursue this? And this is kind of magic, because this is knowledge that if I have not made this podcast, if I have not made those interviews, we would never know. Only the close circle of those people would know. And this were these kind of magical moments for me in the show, where I really think I've done something nice for the community that was not present there,
That's so cool. You've used the M word a few times now, magic, and that's how I describe podcasts as well. And here we are now connecting as a result of the podcasts that I've had. And I'm curious, because the message that you sent in the community talked about a big win that you've had recently. And I know this wasn't the primary reason why you started your show, to generate revenue, or what can you share about that? What recently happened that just was a really amazing validation for this point for you?
So actually, I've received the snippets of validation before. So I had a Buy Me a Coffee on my podcast, and some people were sending me, a few bucks. It was nice to, pay for editing software and host. And more important, it was like if someone's actually takes time to send you a few bucks and then write a nice message, that's a confirmation that what you're doing is worth for the person.
Yeah, that's great.
Also, podcasting is a hard job, and it takes time, and it takes, if you want to do it high quality, it takes resources. So for something like 80 episodes, I was doing all of that on my own without any financial support. And then eventually I found somebody that shares the view of the world that I have, an engineering company from the UK, or far if I can tell the name, an engineering company who share the mindset. They also invest a lot in research in fire. They do good engineering. I know the owners personally, so it was something, I trusted them that it's going to be a good collaboration. And they've agreed to sponsor the show, to take the financial burden, if I may, of doing this on them. Actually, the deal that we've negotiated was, on my end, it was quite fair compensation for the work, like very similar, if not even better than what I have in my day job.
Wow.
And that was like with one deal. I didn't want the hassle of, selling episode by episode. So when I reached out to sponsor, I reached out for a long-term partnership very, very openly. Like, it's also an engineering company. They're not selling products. I'm not advertising any sales in the podcast. What we do is that we show that our messages align, that we have the same mindset, and what they told me. And later on, I've heard from others who would also like to sponsor the show, because it's kind of growing. They all tell me that the thing that I've created is for them unique. And no one knew that we need a podcast for this discipline, And it would be such a shame if this got lost somewhere. So they truly want to support me in this mission, so this can continue, because they enjoy it and they see an immense value in their employees, for example, following the podcast. They see like literal value of the content that it's created to the level that A, they would be associated with it in a way, and B, they would love to make sure it doesn't disappear anywhere anytime soon, because it's simply valuable for them. And I appreciate this. It's the best message you can receive, right?
That's amazing. I mean, that's the perfect kind of partnership, when that partner or company shares the same values as you, sees what you're doing, wants it to survive and thrive, and they're able to support you in that way.
And I now have a deal in craft with another sponsor. However, I approached it kind of differently. I didn't want to have too many sponsors on my show, too many adverts. So I proposed them. They approached me and they said, Wojciech, we love your work. We would like to help you thrive, really. And if that's the case, I proposed them to work with me by creating more episodes together, So I already have a weekly schedule of my podcast. Every Wednesday, I send an episode. And what I plan now is that together with that company, we create a mini series of episodes, let's say 12, that would air on Fridays. That would be a deeper dive into fire investigations, which is the craft of that company, with experts from that company. And they will pay the whole production costs of that, plus cover my hours preparing for that, true crime fire series kind of, So what they proposed me some cash. I said, okay, I'll take the cash, but I would love more work to do and deliver more value to my listeners. And what this gives me is a win-win-win. The audience wins because they get more content, more interesting content. The company wins because of the exposure and being able to deliver message true to their values. And I win. I get more exposure for I serve people better, I give them more content, and there's also financial side of the deal, which for me is nice. So there are models that I think people are not really exploring a lot. And you could, if you only think about CPM, it's not going to get you far. You have to be creative in how you want to work, and you have to understand how your community work, what are the forces in the community, what is the revenue in the community. You have to be aware of that, where you are. And once you are there, you can start connecting with people and build something up together. And I think this is a great way to thrive.
That is amazing. So a mini series with the other companies. So you're not taking anything away from or diluting the first partner that you had. You're adding to it, and your audience is going to get more content. Your podcast is going to get more downloads. Any one of those particular mini-series episodes has the potential to reach new people, to bring more people in.
Exactly.
And again, the money is a bonus. So do you have a name for that strategy? We can coin it right now.
I have
the Wojciech strategy.
No, that's horrible. People are going to break their tongue saying that. I have. Let's not coin it. Let's leave it open access.
Okay.
Science should be open access.
Love it. I love it. That's incredible. And so you now have a podcast that you absolutely love, you're passionate about. Other people are enjoying it. Some are even, tipping you for the work that you do.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Now you have a sponsor who's come in for a long-term contract that allows you to make more than what you made in your day job. And can you tell everybody how many downloads per episode are you averaging on your show?
Oh, it's a lot. It's like 500 per episode. Now, I know you've invited me here because it is a small podcast, and perhaps the episode we're recording today will get more downloads than my entire catalog of 120.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Probably.
But there's nothing wrong with that, Pat. And it's not the download number that matters. I don't calculate my life in clicks per million. I knew what I'm jumping into. I understood that the niche I am in is small. If we have a conference that's attended by 300 people, that's a huge conference. If the conference has 500 people, that's the biggest event of the year,
Yeah, everybody's there.
Everybody's there.
Yeah.
So I estimate, so you don't know that number. I don't know that number because I'm not spying on my listeners. But from Apple panel, I can see there is 1,500 listeners, so which would mean individual devices that downloaded the podcast. And I know from my Buzzsprout account, which is my host, they give you a statistic where the listens come from, and Apple is 35% of my listenership. So, working the numbers backwards, I can say there is perhaps 4,000 to 4,500 people that have listened at some point to the podcast. So that's pretty much the size of the people who know the show by listening it. Also, 500, 600 per episode. Some episodes go above 1,000. Okay, that's and you can see them growing. That's also the beautiful thing about podcasts. These episodes do not disappear. It's not a 1 week thing. They live. I can see people coming in, listening to some episodes, missing other episodes, coming back. From discussions even, there's very few people who would say, okay, I've listened to all 120. I would assume there are just a few people like that, and I appreciate you a lot if you went with me for this long journey. But I also appreciate the listeners if they just listen to 1, 2, 3, 5 episodes. If they brought them value, that's all I've dreamt to deliver. So yeah. 4,500 listeners. That's it.
I mean, that's a pretty tiny amount. And a lot of us who start podcasts worry about those numbers. Like, we want to get into bigger niches. We want to reach as many people as possible. This is a perfect example, and one of the main reasons why I wanted you on the show, not just because what you're doing is awesome and I wanted to celebrate you, but I want to inspire those who might be thinking that small is bad. Small can be great. Imagine if your show was not just about the science of fire, but it was like all things building related, right? Everything from like lead exam stuff to structural code to all these things. It probably wouldn't be as impactful if it was about all those things. Tell me about, before you started your show, was there any worry about the work that you were about to put into it and what you might eventually get back from it before you started?
No, not really. Like not a worry. It was more like a jump into unknown with full acceptance that if I end up with 25 people listening to the show, I'm gonna make it the best show for those 25 people as I can. You know, I had an experience in my career, and that was one of the main triggers I've started podcasting. 2019, I've received a very big award, scientific award from National Fire Protection Association for the best paper of the year. It's a massive award you get, like one of the biggest you can get in the fire science community. And in that, a part of that award was to go to San Antonio, USA and pick the award. And you would deliver a keynote speech. Well, not keynote. You would deliver a speech about the award that you just received, you know? So I'm like out of my mind. I'm going to US. I'm going to pick the award. I'm going to give a speech. It's going to be amazing. I go there. I walk to the room. The room says, Bigglestone Award. There's not my name, no topic, which was wind and fire engineering. I'm like, okay, this is not great. I entered the room. There are two people inside. The person who was chairing the session and one person in the audience. So, and I've made it one of the best speeches I had in my life. You know, they tell you just pick a person in the audience and deliver the speech to them. In this case, it was super easy.
There's just two people in the room.
There was just two people in the room. But I thought at that point, like, is this the pinnacle? Like, is this the top of the mountain? It sure looks empty. And okay, the gala dinner, you know, when I was given the award, was amazing, full of directors, presidents, people shaking hands. But when I went downstairs, you know, to meet the engineers, the people for whom I can make a difference in their everyday job, they were not in the room. And I thought we need something else in the communication between the scientists and the benefactor of the science. And podcasts appeared to be a brilliant route to find them. So I didn't really care how many people by the number will listen, because I knew that there's a good chance whoever listens, I can really make a big change for the everyday work of that single person in every single episode. Also, the episodes are pretty hard and pretty scattered. You know, not every episode is for everyone. So I kind of accepted that. And when I accepted that, I've embraced it, I've made it my strength. Of course, I cared about the numbers in the end, you know, checking the statistics. I guess it's inevitable. But seeing, you know, 50 people download it, 100, 200. Wow, this episode passed 300. It felt really amazing because I knew on the receiving end, there is 300 fire safety engineers listening. And I didn't have any other way to reach 300 people with an hour-long message that would be such detailed in any different way. You know, it's very unique in the way how you can deliver the message.
That's amazing. I mean, even with one of the highest awards in the industry, you were only able to see two people in that room. I bet that felt amazing, but what does it feel like now on this end to be a podcaster and to have an audience and to have people recognize you? Where do you see your position in this industry that you're in going from here? I'm curious.
Yeah, Pat, it's one thing is really weird. Like people talk to you like they know you for ages. I guess you have the same.
I've said that. Yeah, it is weird at first, for sure.
I'm not sure. I hope you can get used to that. It's really confusing, but I kind of love it. How it positions me in the industry. I hope to be recognized as one of the thought leaders of the industry nowadays. So I see I'm being invited more. I'm invited to keynote speeches, not normal talks anymore.
More than two people in the audience?
Significantly more than two people in the audience. That's a great progress. I participate in the professional organizations that we have on the leadership stage. So that's also great. So I definitely see more opportunities coming my way. But also, I, as a scientist, I recognize that opportunities, they do not scale linear, The fact that you're twice better doesn't mean you get twice more opportunities, Like you probably get the same, and then you have 100 more opportunities. It's exponential and very unfair, So I see I perhaps am somewhere on the curve that's growing, that much more opportunity is coming my way. I associate this with podcasts, obviously, because it's something that's reaching people. People speak about it. My name is in the circulation. So definitely I can attribute a lot of this to the fact I'm doing the podcast. But also, if I think, what if I was not doing the podcast? Perhaps I would also reach these opportunities by simply being a good scientist, a researcher, and doing my conferences, papers and stuff. It's just, it would be significantly later in the time, I think the curve is much more steep, the opportunity curve for me nowadays, than it was without the podcast. And this makes it very worthwhile, my effort. Like if you took the money out of the question, if I would be paying for everything and would not have revenue and only benefited from these new opportunities that come my way and the way how I can position myself in the industry, I would take it, like even without the money.
Money's just a bonus.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously nice and fantastic to have this support, freedom. You don't stress about it. It's brilliant. I won't say the money is not great, but it was never the driver, and having it it just gives me more opportunity, more freedom. That freedom is the thing I crave for.
Well, you definitely deserve it. And I'm really excited to see the new opportunities that are coming your way. I'd love to ask you some questions because everybody can hear you have an accent. I have a lot of students who are taking Power Up Podcasting who the first thing they say is, Pat, I'm not from the US. I don't speak English super well. That's going to hurt me, isn't it? And so I'm curious if you've ever worried about that because it's just our voice. And I know a lot of people struggle with that. I'm curious if you have any advice for those who might be thinking the same thing.
I don't think that matters that much as long as you have something to say, I would say the message trumps the language for sure. And even though English is not my first language and I sometimes struggle finding the correct word and making a very beautiful, speech or introduction, in the end, it's the message that needs to get through and people will get over that. I don't think it ever cost me any issues. I'm used to speaking in English. I've spent a lot of time playing World of Warcraft with Swedish players, so that gets you decent English. So for me, it's not an unknown environment. But I'll also, if I did not have the skills or language to do the podcast in English, and I just did the podcast in Polish, I think it would still be successful, perhaps even more, because I could connect to a more specific part of the niche. I could niche it even more down. And actually, I'm thinking about doing that because I also am a little. I do exclude a bit of my audience, because many Polish engineers would not speak English greatly, and I believe they're excluded. And these are the people I work with every day. So I'm also thinking about making a podcast in Polish, and I think these types of podcasts also have a long way and can really shine.
I agree.
And guess what? 5 years from now, we're going to have AI translators who will deliver this in my voice in any language you want. So if you have doubts, the future looks very bright on the technology side.
It's interesting you mentioned Poland and Polish language. Many of our audience here knows Michał Safranski, who I've told stories about. And he then started his own podcast and has done really well in the financial industry over there. And, the podcast numbers there are actually quite big, those who are listening in the Polish language. I just read a study recently that Poland has the largest percentage of population of the country that listens to podcasts, actually.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Poland specifically. So they're on the forefront of it. So that's just maybe even further validation for that. And we're also seeing in a lot of other platforms, not just podcasting, but, even on YouTube, people like Mr. Beast are repurposing their content and actually hiring people to translate that content into other languages as well, just to reach more people, because it's the same message, but it's just there's that language barrier. And once that's broken, I mean, it opens up a whole new potential audience base for you. So just something to think about. Were there any other struggles, or what were the, we always have like that demon on our shoulder that's telling us you can't do this and you're not good at this and all this kind of stuff. Did you have any of those thoughts when you began the show a couple of years ago?
Related to, let's say, the fire science, I didn't have that much, because I'm a professor here.
Yeah, you know your stuff.
I know my stuff. I'm kind of comfortable with fire science. I've done this my entire life. This is my playground. But being, in front of a microphone and camera, that's a completely new setting for you. For that, I had little worries that will it work? I kind of hate my voice in a way. So most people probably do. So that was stopping me for a good year. I would say I've built the knowledge base to start a podcast by listening to you. You had great YouTube videos that show in 1 hour pretty much what you need to have. I know you have the courses that help people start podcasts. I took Amped Up Podcasting when I was already a podcaster, and that was a fantastic experience for me.
Oh, thank you.
So I had the knowledge how to do it. But from the moment I obtained knowledge, 2019, to the first episode of the podcast, 2021, there's a 2.5 year gap. And that gap is the demons you said. It's not easy to press record, go public. I really had to make myself accountable and unable to withdraw in a way.
How did you do that?
I paid $200 for a logo. That's a lot of money for a logo. So if I pay $200 for one, I better use it, right?
Yeah.
And the second thing, I've invited a friend, Professor Guillermo Rain. He is a pretty famous person in here. I'm lucky that he's also my friend. So I was comfortable having him as my first interview. But I also told him, Guillermo, I'm starting a podcast. It's going to air, first week of June this year. And I didn't have anything ready. It was a month before. And I said, it's going to air in June. Let's go. Let's do it. And
he had a deadline.
He was immediately happy to do it. And I'm like, oh, now I have to do it.
You kind of wish he said no so that you could wait longer.
In a way, yeah, and not
I get it.
I did it with full understanding what I'm putting myself into. But the moment I made it myself, not able to withdraw from it, I just went full into it, and that was a good decision.
That's amazing. Well, this is going to be really encouraging for a lot of people who are just starting out. The idea that you can succeed as a podcaster in a small niche. The last question I have related to what you just said is interviewing. Interviewing is a skill that is not easy to pick up, and it's something that you get better at the more you do it. And now that you've been 2 years into this, might you have any advice for the listener who now is excited to get started on their podcast, but is feeling the same way you did when you asked your professor friend to come on the show? What interview tips might you have for everybody listening?
So I'll tell you what was my approach to this whole interview concept. And that was also one of the reasons I thought a new channel of communication is necessary. If you listen to scientists, a lot of personal traits that make you a good scientist make you a pretty bad communicator. It kind of is like that. And sometimes you go into a scientific conference and there's a person showcasing their work for 20 minutes. And people fall asleep because it's kind of unbearable, And if you have talk by talk for 6 hours, these conferences can be very difficult. And then after the conference, you go in the evening with that person and you can spend 2 hours talking about the exact same work. And it's fantastic. They are full of passion. It's literally fire. And I thought, why are those people not transferring those emotions through their public speeches? They're transferring knowledge, but they keep the emotions behind. And I thought, if I could, in a way, reproduce this informal setting, of just chatting with the person about what they're doing and extracting the knowledge by asking meaningful questions about their work, in a way that I set them up, to give me everything they would like to share with the audience. And, they speak with me, but the listener is the third person in this conversation. That's how I would love it to be. There's me, the guest, and the listener, and all three of us are having the conversation. It's just the listener is silent, and I'm their mouth and I'm their voice, And as soon as I realize It's not about interview. It's about an honest conversation, with listening, with asking meaningful questions, following up, really digging into it with a real curiosity, not a fake curiosity. I'm not faking curiosity so podcast sounds good. I'm really curious about what the person has to say. I set them up for communicating not only with knowledge, but also emotion. And this makes the interview something that is very pleasant to listen, very informal, and just fun. I want it to be fun. Science is already hard enough. We don't need to make science harder. It's great to have it fun.
Gee whiz, I'm like, my brain is like, we got to share this episode as soon as possible, because every day that goes by without people listening to it, they might miss out. This is incredible. Wojciech, thank you so much for all of this. And I'm so proud of you, and I'm so just happy about the success that you've had and the success that's to come. And you know that you always have our support here at SPI. So just keep going, man. You're doing amazing work. And thank you again for jumping on this pretty quick here to share this with us. It's very meaningful, and it's going to help a lot of people. Where might people go to listen to your show if you'd like? The numbers for, maybe some of the episodes after this episode comes out might be a little skewed for you because people will want to hear it, but where should they go to find more of you?
The podcast is at firescienceshow.com, and you can find it on Twitter, on LinkedIn. I'm personally most present on LinkedIn, to be honest. You can find me by my name, which most likely will be in your show notes, and I won't butcher people with just that.
There's a lot of vowels. Like I'm not even going to try.
That's what you would expect from a proper Polish name, right? So if you would like to connect, if there is any way I can help you out directly, if you have any questions, how to set it up, how to start, if you have any doubts, just send me a message and I'll try to help you out. I've received a ton of help from people when I was starting my podcast, and I really believe in, giving back. So if there is any way I can help, I'm happy to do it.
Well, thank you so much. And you're also in our communities as well, and people can connect with you in there. So thank you for the inspiration. Fire Science Show, we'll have everything in the show notes as mentioned. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Pat.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Wojciech, host of the Fire Science Show, and definitely check him out. He is a wealth of information, especially if you're into fire and science and engineering and that kind of thing. But also, he's just a really dope guy, and he's thinking about starting a podcast in Polish, which is really cool. But I wanted to read for you something he shared with me after the interview was done. He wanted to share exactly how he got his sponsorship deal. We talked about that. We talked about some of the numbers. I'm not going to reveal exact dollar amount, but like we were talking about, he's making more with his podcast than in his day job, despite having relatively smaller numbers. So this is what he said. This is how I priced the sponsor deal. It was a huge pain point and a real blockade for me. I was afraid if I did it too low, I'd be stuck at that price point for a long time. I also did not want to shoot too high. What gave me huge clarity in this was the Pricing for Profit workshop with Matt Gartland. That's our Matt from SPI, which was included in the All Access Pass. One of the best invested hour of time I had. Matt explained a cost-plus method, which I used to evaluate how much my time could be worth, and that was a great start. He also introduced pricing based on competition, which I took over for a creative spin. I figured out that sponsoring a podcast in many ways resembles sponsoring a conference. A 2-day conference event is roughly 12 hours of content, and a quarter of a podcast is, or a quarter's worth of a podcast, like 3 months, is 12 hours of content. In conferences, the sponsors have direct access to people, but in podcasts, it's even better. They have the host reaching out in their name. In conferences, you find unfocused and sometimes random people, while in podcasts, you find the people who listen for a reason, are focused, and are in the right mindset to learn something. In conferences, the brand exposure can be very intense with logos, stands, and everything, but in podcasts, the influence is spread over a long period of time. Having differences in mind, I think it's fair to compare them together. Then I found conferences of a similar size to my listenership, 300 to 500 people at that time, and used their premium sponsoring package price as a benchmark for a quarter of sponsorship of my show. It worked perfectly for me and gave me confirmation that companies do pay such money for a similar exposure to similar groups of people. Incredible, Wojciech. Thank you so much for that insight, that additional insight, and that's great. And this is part of the power of the All Access Pass. You have access to a lot of things depending on where you're at in your business and what you might need. And Matt's pricing for profit workshop is going to stand the test of time because it is genius. And shout out to Matt as well, but also especially to you, Wojciech, and you, the listener. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Again, Wojciech from the Fire Science Show. I hope this is inspiring to you. I know a lot of you who might be listening to this did hear me share a clip of this on Instagram and on Twitter not too long ago, because I really wanted to share a preview of this, especially as we've had new students come in to take our Power Up Podcasting 3.0 course. And people are going through that accelerator right now, or in fact, probably almost done. So anyway, congratulations to everybody. Congratulations to you. Thank you so much for listening in, and hit that subscribe button. And looking forward to helping be a part of your success story as well. Cheers. Thanks so much. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Smart Passive Income podcast at smartpassiveincome.com. I'm your host, Pat Flynn. Sound editing by Duncan Brown. Our senior producer is David Grabowski, and our executive producer is Matt Gartland. The Smart Passive Income podcast is a production of SPI Media and a proud member of the Entrepreneur Podcast Network. Catch you next week. Hey, fellow podcaster, does this sound like something you've experienced? Record your podcast episode on one platform, download the files, edit in another app, then fire up a different tool just to create these social clips. Well, it can be clunky, time-consuming, and frankly overwhelming, especially for creators trying to grow. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about Riverside. Riverside is the all-in-one platform. Record, edit, and repurpose your podcast content all in one place. You just log in, record with your guests no matter where you are in the world, and just like that, studio-quality audio and high-resolution video. We use Riverside here at SPI as well now. With built-in AI, I can automatically clean up my audio, saving myself so much editing time, and it can even auto-generate clips to make promoting the show a breeze. And with Magic Clips, I can grab the best moments and repurpose them as short-form video, perfect for YouTube Shorts, TikTok, or Instagram, without re-recording a thing. So if you're tired of juggling tools and want a faster, simpler way to create and scale your content, it's time to try Riverside, built by creators for creators. Just go to smartpassiveincome.com/Riverside and use code SMART to get 1 month free on the Pro plan. That's smartpassiveincome.com/Riverside, promo code SMART. Look, I get it. You want to grow your business, but trying to sell to hundreds or even thousands of people gets very exhausting very fast. But what if you could sell at scale with a simple, powerful quiz? ScoreApp helps you sell to more people without adding more to your plate. You build a quiz or assessment that your audience actually wants to take. Then they answer a few quick questions and get a personalized result right away. It shows them where they're at and what they need to do next and how you can help. And you build huge amounts of trust before you make even a single offer. No hard sell, no chasing leads, just value at scale. Get 50% off the first 3 months using the discount code SPI. All you have to do is just head to scoreapp.com/SPI. Again, that's scoreapp.com/SPI.